Well, with this class, I use Nearpod as a digital tool because it's a big class and a lot of students, everybody wants to be at the front. I can't really have everybody at the front. It puts what's on the board right there at the student's desk so they can see a lot easier. Also, it allows me to, if students are out, I actually have 2 copies of the presentation. So that if students are out, I have one that works all through the problems. So I can assign that as a homework or a student-paced one. So if they're out, they can go through the problems too. Or if they need a review, what I'll go back and do is put that on the Google Classroom. And so that they can work through the problems again and see where it's working. So if they have any questions, they can go back and review that. That's one of the things I like about Nearpod the best is that student-paced component. So if students are out, I can make sure they get the work without necessarily me going over it piece by piece. And they can review it first, and if they have any questions, they can come and ask me then afterwards. So through digital learning, it kind of frees me up a little bit because I can let the students work a little bit more independently, and then I can monitor what they're doing. And I can also do a little bit more differentiate some problems. I can assign students who are at a higher level, maybe a little harder problems, still working on the same concept, or students that need a little bit more work on the basic concept. We can do that. And then I can assign them problems like that. And it also kind of gives me instant feedback depending on what I'm doing. If I'm doing a school net test or something, it kind of tells me exactly how they're doing on each standard. Or if I use my Pearson, it tells me mastery, and I can go back and see which students are really mastering the content and which ones need to go back and need a little bit more work or more practice. Generally speaking, Google Classroom's kind of, I put stuff like, class announcements, what's going to happen that week, when tests are going to be done. If I post homework, if they lose homework, since math, I think is very much, you still have to do paper pencil. However, I limited copies, I can't give everybody an extra copy. So what I do is I do post it on Google Classroom too. So if they lose it or something happens, or they can go back in there and it's right there and they can still do their homework. Sometimes I do science too. So sometimes I do labs on there and they do the lab report on Google Classroom through Google Docs or the Excel sheets, depending on what kind of lab we're doing. I also put the student-paced Nearpods or presentations, if I'm just doing a PowerPoint that day, on there so that students can go back, and if they missed a day or they need to review it again, they can go back and look at it. So that helps a lot. And students who are suspended or in ISS, that's very useful too because they can keep up without falling behind. For the most part, it's increased. They really like it, especially if they can do something on their own. They can do a research project, or they can look stuff up on their own. It still has to be monitored. Some students still like to play games rather than do their work, but I think overall it's increased because they like the digital part. And I also today I didn't do that, but I also lots of time I incorporate music or videos from YouTube about the subject that we're doing, and that really does engage them in what we're about to do, and they like the little tunes that they make. And sometimes another thing I have them do is they make up their own based on the concept we're teaching, and then they can see that too. So that's a lot of fun too. So and then they can record themselves, and they really like that. So overall, it's gone up, but monitoring is always the key there.